This week we learned about regional and national issues that come with policing. Now, within each one of these problems, there is a significant difference in what the reality is and what the perception is. Because we have perceptions of the officers, perceptions of the victims, perceptions of society in general, and much more. Because of that, we have to really decide what is the reality and how to better tackle that, because perceptions can be so misleading. There are a bunch of societal concerns that can come from these perceptions or from reality, and that's why we need to work on figuring out what those perceptions are, but actually telling people the reality of it all. And as people who are in the criminal justice system, they need to realize the reality over the perceptions that they hear. This week's discussion was based on contemporary policing issues. Some of the things that I found when I looked it up was wearing body cameras, recruiting police officers, using excessive force in the policing, prejudice and discrimination towards minority groups or certain groups, the use of non-lethal weapons, the defunding of police, and there's so many more things. I specifically chose to write and research about police brutality. Now, I found a lot of articles, but I found one that kind of talked about the perception of there is a lot of brutality happening. Now, although in some places there is, cases where we see a white male officer be harsh and brutal towards only Black people or only LGBTQ members, the fact is, yeah, that happens, but there's a lot of male officers who are white who also are brutal to other whites, or they can be brutal to not just Black people. They're not just racist. It's not only those cases that we find. What one of the perception is from society is that most police officers are both systematically racist and use brutal force towards those kind of people. Now, although we do see cases of that, which is very unfortunate, the fact is that only happens sometimes. Police brutality is not every single case. It's once in maybe an officer's career, because usually if they get caught, we end that career. I personally think that there's not a lot of brutality that's happening. We just hear about it because media likes to push that out onto us to make us perceive police as bad. But overall, from learning about this and reading my classmates' discussions on other issues, it's clear to see that perceptions can really change people's thoughts, and it can make them think the opposite of what the reality is. And so I think it's just important to remember that as you are becoming an officer or anything in the criminal justice system, to remember that there's going to be many perceptions, but there's only going to be one reality.